So, how do you create absolute bone-chilling terror without a single drop of blood on screen? Well, today we're going to tear apart a short horror script called The Ceasefire of the Dead. We're going to see how it builds dread, not by what it shows us, but by slowly, methodically breaking reality itself.
The entire script kicks off with this line. It's quiet, it's simple, and it's spoken by a terrified young soldier. And with just those 6 words, the story puts us completely on edge. You notice that, right? The horror isn't a scream, it's not an explosion, it's a sudden, deeply unnerving silence.
And that really gets to the heart of our question here. A battlefield is supposed to be noisy, right? It's all about the roar of guns, the chaos. So what happens when all of that just stops? This script shows us that real horror, a lot of the time, is in the absence of what we expect. It's in that deafening silence where there should be noise. Now, here's a key rule in horror. To make something feel truly unreal, you first have to make it feel real. See, effective horror doesn't just throw a monster at you on page 1. No, it starts by grounding us in a world we can recognize, even if it's a pretty grim one. So the first scene is exactly what you'd expect from a World War I story. You've got muddy trenches, you've got cold, miserable rain, and 2 soldiers just trying to survive. This is totally deliberate. The script builds this familiar, miserable foundation just so it can have the maximum impact when it starts pulling the bricks out one by one. And this is where we see that first little crack appear. The horror doesn't start with a jump scare. It begins with something way more subtle, a corruption of the senses. The world starts to feel wrong, long before we actually see anything monstrous. This line is our signal. One of the soldiers, Erickson, is the first to notice that the fundamental rules of the world are changing. And by focusing on sound, the script creates this invisible threat. You can't see what's wrong, you can only hear it. And that is so much more unsettling. And just look at how brilliantly this is done. The script takes a sound we all know, rain, which we associate with life, with cleansing, and it twists it into a premonition of death. It describes the sound as a dull, hollow thudding, like dirt hitting a coffin. That is just chilling. It's a perfect example of building dread by twisting the familiar into something menacing.
So that creepy sound, well, now it gets a visual confirmation. The rain isn't just rain anymore, it's ash. And this thick, unnatural fog starts pouring into the trench. The script is layering these sensory details, basically screaming at us that whatever's happening, it's breaking the very laws of nature.
All right, so the atmosphere is totally corrupted. The horror is now ready to move to its next stage. The script reveals an image that is both completely impossible and deeply, deeply unnerving. It's time to see what's actually waiting for them out there in no man's land. The first thing the soldiers see isn't a monster, it's a number. Not dozens, not even hundreds. Thousands of figures, just standing silently in the field. The scale is immediately overwhelming, and it tells you right away this isn't some small, localized threat. And who are these thousands of figures? Get this, they are soldiers from all sides of the war. Bitter enemies who, just moments ago, were trying to kill each other are now standing shoulder to shoulder. The scene gives us this insane paradox, the image of peace, an impossible truce, right in the middle of a war zone. But the real horror, the thing that makes your skin crawl, isn't that they're together. It's that they are perfectly, unnaturally still. The script uses stillness and silence as its primary weapons here. There's no action, no threat, just this vast, silent, and motionless audience. And right on cue, the script confirms our deepest fear. Erickson, who's basically our terrified guide through this whole nightmare, says out loud what we've all started to suspect. These are not living soldiers enjoying a moment of peace. Something is terribly, fundamentally wrong. And then, the reveal. When one of the figures finally moves, it's not to attack. It's to show our heroes, and us, what it really is. And the horror is the complete absence of humanity, a blank, smooth void where a face should be. This isn't gore. This is something so much deeper, a kind of existential body horror. This reveal just hits the accelerator. The horror shifts from this unsettling, creepy vibe in the trench to something bigger, way bigger. We are now officially moving into the realm of cosmic horror, the fear of the vast and the incomprehensible. This one line from Erickson changes everything. It reframes the entire Great War, one of the most devastating events in human history,
as nothing more than a childish squabble, a little bit of noise that accidentally got the attention of something ancient, vast, and totally indifferent to us.
The final scene is just a masterclass in escalating chaos. It happens in stages. First, you hear this impossible sound, a trumpet made of bone. Then, Erickson just surrenders his will, becomes a puppet. The laws of physics completely shatter as the moon just vanishes from the sky. And finally, the reveal. Not a monster, but an eye, filling the entire sky. An entity so large it's part of the cosmos itself.
And that, right there, is the heart of cosmic horror. The terror doesn't come from a creature you can shoot or a ghost you can exorcise. It comes from the crushing realization of your own insignificance. Humanity isn't the main character in this story. We are barely a footnote. So, after walking through that whole nightmare, what did we learn? Let's break down the powerful techniques this script uses to build such effective horror without ever resorting to cheap violence. First off, it's super important to know the genre. This is a perfect example of cosmic horror. And it's not really about being afraid of dying. It's about the fear that your life, your struggles, your entire species means absolutely nothing to the true powers of the universe. So here it is. This is the toolkit for dread. You start by corrupting familiar senses. You weaponize silence and stillness. You flip expectations on their head, showing us a truth that isn't a truce. You introduce something uncanny, like the faceless man, to disturb us on a really primal level. And you build it all to a climax that just screams about how small we really are. And the ending gives you zero comfort. The soldiers are simply gone, listed as missing in action. No explanation, no bodies recovered, nothing. That ambiguity is the final twist of the knife, leaving the horror to just fester in your imagination long after the story is over. And it all comes down to this question, doesn't it? This script makes a really powerful argument that the ultimate horror isn't the monster in the closet, it's the dawning realization that the universe is vast, ancient, and we are utterly, completely, and terrifyingly alone within it.